The 20th century was profoundly shaped by Karl Marx's ideas. His critique of capitalism resonated with many. This was especially true in colonized parts of the world. Marxism offered a language of liberation. It spoke of ending exploitation and achieving equality. Many saw in Marxism a path to a more just world. The Russian Revolution in 1917 seemed to offer a glimpse of this future. It inspired movements for independence and social justice across the globe. Marxism's appeal lay in its analysis of power. It showed how economic systems could create and sustain inequality. Colonialism, many argued, was the sharpest example of this. European powers enriched themselves by exploiting resources and labor in their colonies. This fueled anti-colonial struggles. Marxism provided a framework for understanding these injustices. It offered a vision for a different future, free from exploitation. The promise of this vision had a powerful impact on the world. By the 1980s, the Soviet Union faced serious challenges. Decades of centralized planning had led to stagnation. The economy struggled to meet people's needs. There was a growing gap between the promises of socialism and the reality of everyday life. In response to this crisis, Mikhail Gorbachev initiated reforms. He introduced Glasnost, which allowed for greater openness and freedom of expression. Alongside this came Perestroika, aimed at restructuring the Soviet economy. Gorbachev's reforms were intended to revitalize the Soviet system. However, they unleashed forces that ultimately contributed to its downfall. Glasnost led to open criticism of the government and its policies. Years of suppressed grievances and discontent surfaced. Perestroika, while attempting to address economic problems, created further instability. The Soviet system, already weakened by internal contradictions, began to unravel. The Berlin Wall fell in 1989. By 1991, the Soviet Union itself had collapsed, marking a turning point in history. The collapse of the Soviet Union sent shockwaves around the world. For many, it signaled the failure of socialist ideals. Communist parties faced a crisis of legitimacy. Eastern European regimes crumbled. The Cold War ended, but its legacy continued. The Third World navigated a new world order. Socialist movements were profoundly impacted. Many abandoned Marxist ideology, others distanced from the Soviet model. The vanguard party idea lost appeal. There was a turn towards democratic socialism. Social movements for gender equality, environmental justice, and LGBTQ+ rights gained momentum. The desire for a just world persisted. Strategies and goals were re-evaluated. Section 4. Market Socialism, a New Path? The late 20th century witnessed a curious phenomenon. Even as the Soviet Union crumbled, some countries embarked on a path of market socialism. China and Vietnam, both communist-led states, embraced market reforms while retaining state control over key sectors. This hybrid model aimed to harness the dynamism of the market while mitigating its inequalities. It was a pragmatic response to the challenges of economic development in a globalized world. China's economic transformation under Deng Xiaoping was particularly striking. By embracing market mechanisms, China achieved unprecedented growth rates. Millions were lifted out of poverty. However, this growth came at a cost. Income inequality soared, and labor rights were often ignored. The Chinese model demonstrated both the potential and the pitfalls of market socialism. It raised questions about the relationship between economic growth, social justice, and political freedom. These questions continue to be debated today. Section 5. The End of History, Triumphalism and its Discontents. The fall of the Berlin Wall prompted some to declare the end of history. Francis Fukuyama argued that liberal democracy had triumphed over its ideological rivals. With communism's demise, he suggested, humanity had reached the end of ideological evolution. Capitalism and liberal democracy were seen as the only viable system. This triumphalism, however, proved premature. The 21st century has been marked by crises challenging this narrative. The 2008 financial crisis exposed global capitalism's instability. Rising inequality, political polarization, and climate change point to systemic problems. Marxist ideas have experienced a resurgence. Scholars and activists draw on Marx to understand contemporary challenges. The end of history has given way to a renewed search for alternatives.